all other things, ushers adapt quickly. It's one thing I tried to teach them, the art of the pivot. When life hands you lemons.
Make lemonade.
No. First, you roll out a multimedia campaign to convince people lemons are incredibly scarce, which only works if you stockpile lemons, control the supply, then a media blitz. Lemons are the only way to say I love you, the must-have accessory for engagements or anniversaries. Roses are out, lemons are in, billboards that say she won't have sex with you unless you've got lemons. You cut De Beers in on it. Limited edition lemon bracelets, yellow diamonds called lemon drops. You get Apple to call their new operating system OS Lemon. Little accent over the O. You charge 40% more for organic lemons, 50% more for conflict-free lemons. You pack the capital with lemon lobbyists. You get a Kardashian to suck a lemon wedge in a leaked sex tape. Timothy Chalamet wears lemon shoes at Cannes. Get a hashtag campaign. Something isn't cool or tight or awesome. No, it's lemon. Did you see that movie? Did you go to that concert? It was effing lemon. Billie Eilish, OMG, hashtag lemon. You get Dr. Oz to recommend 4 lemons a day and a lemon suppository supplement to get rid of toxins, because there's nothing scarier than toxins. Then you patent the seeds. You write a line of genetic code that makes lemons look just a little more like tits, and you get a gene patent for the tit lemon DNA sequence. You cross-pollinate, you get those seeds circulating in the wild, and then you sue the farmers for copyright infringement when that genetic code shows up on their land. Sit back, rake in the millions, and then, when you're done, and you've sold your lempire for a few $1 billion, then, and only then, you make some fucking lemonade.
And there you have it. That's the formula. That's from the Fall of the House of Usher Netflix series. And yes, if they interrupted this podcast, you've got the formula. That's how the psychopaths or the cathedral or the cabal or the octopus or the archons work. Simple formula. All of government, all of society, perhaps all of reality, as some might say, but it's right there. And so, but welcome to Aeon Byte. My name is Miguel Connor, and I am your Pompatus of Gnosis. Welcome to this Philip K. Dick world, these Gnostic times, and this age of Hermes. And you're going to get a lot more red pills today beyond this clip from the Fall of the House of Usher, because it is always an honor to have Beth Martens on the show. Beth, how are you doing? And what do you think of the clip?
Oh my goodness, that was hysterical. I'm totally going to send everybody to that and this interview as well. And I'm just quickly sharing it out on my Telegram because I didn't tell you.
Yeah, if I have the clip, I can send you the clip if you ever want to end your own podcast or begin your pod, because it's like you got to play these things over and over again. It just makes perfect sense.
I know. There's one I have to send you. It's not full of truth or anything like that, but I must have watched it 27 times. Then people kept sending it back to me, and I will watch it again. And just the sheer intelligence of the humor that wasn't planned. And this one was very planned and orchestrated, but priceless. That's like just hits the nail right on the head.
Indeed. And with us too, it is also a pleasure to have Graham with us. Vance is still on vacation. Graham, how are you doing? And what do you think of the clip? Hits it on the head?
Oh, hits it out of the ballpark, that's for sure. No, I'm interested in hearing from Beth about, that Ascension isn't all sparkles, unicorn, and rainbow sparks.
Yeah, that's not my subject right there.
Awesome. Yeah, it's been a while since you've been on the show. I actually looked, and it was, I think it was spring of 2021. And I'm like, God, time is really flying. I mean, obviously, I believe that these corrupt psychopaths at the top do like to manipulate uh, the world with magic and other things. I don't know if they're speeding it up, or I could just get very simple and say, "What's my age?" It's simple. Time is flying. It's like, oh my God, it's already the end of April. What the hell is going on here? But regardless, it has been too long. So why don't we start with how have you been dealing with what has happened in 2020? How has your life changed, and how did you pivot to not, I would say, not sanity, but maybe escaping sanity? 'Cause,
Yeah, that was a lot of sanity going on, a lot of reality.
yeah, there
And
is that saying. I think Graham mentioned it a couple weeks ago. Sanity is simply sharing the delusions of your neighbors.
I like that. Nice. Nice. Yeah, it's really been wild, as all of us could never have well, I mean, some of us did predict, right, that it wasn't actually completely out of the blue. Since 2015, I had been more awake to agendas. And when it happened, it wasn't any less devastating, but it was like, oh yeah, that's exactly what people have been saying was coming down the line, and here it is. So yeah, it's been quite an evolution from 5 minutes of complete despair, thinking I had to just pack it in, stop working, the sorrow and mourning that I had just hit my stride with my work,
Mhm.
and now it was all just going to come crashing down. And after that 5 minutes, I thought, you know what? In my history, my past, I've never just laid down to die. So why would I do that now? Made no sense. And then I prayed to God. I said, what could I do right now that would help me move forward and be of service to my people? And I heard the answer to create a large training that helps people to learn how to be coaches, to learn to deprogram, to read archetypes and do what I do, because that was my idea all along. I just thought I wouldn't do it for another decade or two when I was qualified. And God's like, you're qualified, do the thing. And also, like, here's how you get qualified is by doing the thing. So I flipped from being in a whole lot of fear to being up to my eyeballs in a creative project. It's no little thing to have a 7-month training where people are every single week getting some new material and working through that. And so I immediately booked a group of people to help me beta the training. They knew that they were along for the ride, and as I was creating it. And I've just now completed my 5th training in 4 years and
Mm.
graduated a number of coaches. So it is, in fact, the most satisfying work. And I thank God and all the controllers for rolling the pandemic sooner than I planned.
Good deal. Good deal. Yeah. What advice would you give? I mean, I think I was taking your course around that time, so it was meant to be, and it helped me a lot. And one of the sayings, I don't know that I got, was sometimes you got to jump off the plane and then worry about the parachute later. You got to have trust in how things are going. So,
Yeah, and build the plane and flight at the same time is
mm,
an added expression to that one, where you just, okay, creative energy is coming through. I always say that if I have to live on slave planet, I would rather slave to my purpose and to inspiration. So when it comes, I answer unconditionally.
good deal. Yeah. And I don't, it's really remarkable what happened. And even, let's take everything off the table. Let's take all the arguments. But here is the truth that, and this is something that both the left and the right should be just so angry about. Since 2020, you've had the largest wealth of transfer in the history of Western civilization, probably. I mean, the guy making lemons got a lot richer, and the other guy listening, he got a lot poorer. And somebody like you, a small business owner, or me, it was terrifying. And unfortunately, a lot of small business owners didn't make it. Hundreds of thousands of them, just like people who, as we were talking on your podcast, yeah, they closed they close AA meetings, but they left the liquor stores open. And I'm slowly getting back into AA, and it's like I'm realizing that about 30% of people that were going died. I mean, I'm like, what happened to this guy? What happened to that? They they went out, they relapsed, they got depressed, they lost their business, and it's hard. So I would say no matter what side of the spectrum you are, you should be really furious that this happened to us, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, no matter what you did with it. It did reveal a lot about free will. Maybe we'll end up talking about that,
Sure, of course.
because the circumstances were irrefutable, and they were, it's kind of like the sun shining on absolutely everything. It didn't discriminate on who it was going to harm. And but yet I saw people go in such different directions with it. My coach that I had worked with, I haven't seen her for a long time now, but she got married. She kept her business going every single day. She just didn't listen. She didn't comply. She, snaked her way through that situation. Um, her life just got more amazing and more abundant in the whole thing. She was even in a fair amount of denial. I kept trying to, but. She came from a communist country already, so she had already lived through that and didn't have this massive fear of it like we do. And so some people went up, some people went down, some people got really trapped and felt like, oh, they had to go and put, foreign poison in their body in order to put food on the table. And others went, you know what? That's outside of my integrity. I'm going to risk it. I'm going to go off into the no guarantee world where, as entrepreneurs, we know that there's literally nobody who's going to say, oh yeah, this is going to work. We talked about it yesterday on the hero's journey. You have to take it, but there's no actual promise of results. And but they did it anyway, and they got results, because I think when you choose for freedom deep down inside yourself, you are signing up for a serious partnership with God, and God favors all of that. So it doesn't mean you're going to get out of heavy or hard lessons, and things do blow up in your face and people die and all kinds of things. Very sorry for your losses, by the way, in groups. Oh my gosh, 30% of the people didn't come back from that. Wow. So yeah, just exposed how deeply we are tasked with choosing at every moment. And yes, there are circumstances that completely do victimize and take us down, but it never removes your choice. It never removes the capacity for full power. You just have to go against the grain. And one of the things that I did in the last 4 years is amp up my workaholism. Right, I went from one interview a week on the King Hero's journey to 3 or 4 a week, and I created the House of Free Will, my private domain ministry, which then gave me like 2 operations to run at the same time. Although I moved a lot of my work into the House of Free Will. Continue to coach people, continue to do courses. I invented, in fact, 2 courses for the Truth and Freedom movement, the Find Your Sacred Purpose. I took it for granted everybody knew what they were doing here. Like when I talk to you, it's just a normal thing. You're very aware of purpose. And there were a lot of people that put their hand up saying they needed to get to square one with that.
Mm.
And I also created a course called Primal Power on the 5 primal archetypes that are there on the precipice between life and death. I think you and I might have talked about that back in 2021.
Yeah.
So yeah, I realized how, Kundalini King, that's nice. Miss you too. And so there's just so many choices we have to claim the power that we have and to forfeit the power that we have. So being alive in a human body with a human soul is an enormous responsibility, and I take that seriously. So yeah, just worked and worked and worked. And then last fall I had a like kaboom. It was over for me all of a sudden. I hit a full stop with just everything compounded in my life. And I to top it off, had been on a supplement I should not have been on long term. Little bit of caution. There's so much natural health stuff going around in the freedom world, and it's easy to just glom on like, oh, so and so says this is good, glug 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 glug. And I even had a practitioner saying, oh yes, double up on it so it can clean your organs even more, like this. And so
Okay.
I'm chewing on this stuff all year long, and it turned out to be the worst thing possible ever. My digestion collapsed, absolutely
Okay.
came to a full stop. didn't digest food for the better part of 3 months, lost every single bit of body fat, a great deal of muscle, even bone. There, my like sleeves were too long all of a sudden, and I was a disappearing person for a little bit there. Managed to turn it around. Big shout out to a woman that I've worked with and known for a lot of years, Sherry Rothwell, who helped me to heal with food. And even just to walk away from all supplementation for a time, just to go for the most basic animalistic version of healing. And here I am, and even bodybuilding and doing exercise. I'm back in my clothes, all fit now. So thank God for that. Also very much noticed how, we're in a war and we are in the so-called opposition, and becoming aware for the first time in my life about what controlled opposition is. I know everybody must have some idea of that, but I'd never really come face to face with them or interviewed them or had them infiltrate my groups, and even courses at times, I believe, were somewhat infiltrated there. And it culminated in me doing an archetypes of controlled op. So that was actually fun for me because I'm always sensing and reading patterns, consider myself a pattern hunter. And I was starting to become lucid, especially in the law world where there's so much corruption and grifters and Candyman, I called them, and outright Satan, who know what they're doing to mislead people, who sold their soul away. And yeah, so that's been, just seeing the big show. It's actually been a huge time saver because then, I don't have to listen to every character in the show and try to sort through everything.
Awesome. Well, good. Yeah, you've been busy. You've been fighting the good fight, as they say. So why don't we get to your work on the myth of ascension, because I think it is important, and tell us about it and tell us what's going on.
Yeah, so I've really been looking into this since 2001, when I began to recover and heal from a 3-year battle with cancer. And I had been going to India for several years in a row, and took meditation really seriously. It was a very big part of my life. And I didn't know that I was using it to vacate, to ascend up and out of my human experience. And it worked really well because it put an end to suffering. The suffering was all here. And if I could just get even here, I wasn't suffering. I wasn't suffering anymore. And then I almost die that way. So it was not the good path. I suddenly saw, oh, wow, I can't get far away enough from myself. The further I get away from myself, the more dead this is. And so it created a U-turn moment in my life where I had to look back. I know we've talked about this already, but that was the beginning of seeing that it's not an out-of-body experience I'm looking for. It's an in-body experience I'm looking for. And then I spent now the better part of almost 25 years decoding and deprogramming and seeing what is actually the truth of a spiritual path that's genuinely a good one, since I had such bad results with the direction I went in. And so it's highly nuanced, and I realized how much ascension programming I had, not just from my guru in India, but from the whole life. And this was something that I saw. I recently gave a talk at Acapulco on the ascension myth busting, specifically for king heroes. And so I consider you one, Miguel, and anybody out there that's got the fire and the power and the bravery to get out and say the hard thing, and risking the attacks and the backlash and the cancels and the losing your channel or suspended channels and losing it, and they suffer with ascension, but it's not even necessarily in the spiritual realm. So I identified there's 2 versions of every program that you can distill down into these unconscious programs that are like an artificial intelligence. They operate only with tacit agreement. It's very interesting how the world is blowing up with artificial intelligence right now, because it gives you this external example to study. But lo and behold, it's of course right here, and it's probably why it works so well on us, or can potentially work well on us, because we've got that whole system inside. And so every single program, they say a whole bunch of different things, and I know you know this, Miguel, but do you want me to share just a little bit about?
Yeah, please do.
Because they're quite discrete. We have, thousands and millions and maybe countless numbers of experiences that you will think are different out there. The variety is endless, literally without end. But when you see the programming underneath your, specifically what you can observe, your thoughts and your feelings, they're actually quite discrete, right? So there's 4 root programs, only 4. Could be millions of different experiences, but only 4 root programs. And then those 4 root programs combine up with each other and with all of the feelings on the scale. This is as far as I've been able to observe it inside myself. And they create a discrete number of what I call composite programs. So the roots being, it's sitting on your shoulder. The biggest, most nemesis, biggest nemesis of all is that you're going to die. You're not going to survive this. So it's falling on your shoulder, and the first thing in the morning, you're going to die, Beth. You better this, you better that. Go, save your life all day long. And that is unfortunately the reality. It'll tell you that you're not in control, which is a big fat lie. I always like to be the poster child of that anti-New Age message that we're need to let go of control. No, dudes, that's hardwired. You got that stuff. The programming is that you're out of control. It'll also tell you that nobody loves you. You need to struggle every day and fight for the love and approval of your peers, your family, your boss, your whatever, the government. Another one that is very interesting and easy to intellectualize, but it still is a very core signature vibration, is the want for oneness. And also I saw this year how it's the same identical want for wholeness.
Because I do the 3. You taught me the 3 when we would do our work together. Interesting, a 4 one. That should be a good one.
Yeah. It was always around, and I don't teach it necessarily quickly because it's just easy to think about. People resort to it thinking that, wanting oneness and wholeness sounds way better than wanting survival. So they just like, oh yeah, wanting oneness. I'm all romantic over here, and so I'll often start with those 3 just as a way to establish, because you can get a lot of mileage. But yeah, I'm sure you could make use of that. And then other programs that have a real signature saying that if you don't get it perfect, you're going to die, or if you do get it perfect, you're going to die, or with the fingers pointing out that you're not getting it perfect, I'm going to kill you. Or if you do get it perfect, I'm going to kill you. So then you got the not worthy, not good enough composite program. You've got the I hate myself, I love myself. This was also a big awakening to see how, the self-love movement. It's so, again, everybody loved that. Oh, you just have to love yourself and love yourself. Well, guess what? That's the high ascendant side of a program. And it has much better overall results than the I hate myself. You might not try to, kill yourself or harm yourself from this loving place. But guess what? Programs are 2 sides of the very same coin, just like an archetype. You cannot have what we call high functional side without having the low dysfunctional side. Right? So then people cling to the high side of the programs. You also have the winning, I call it the winning program for lack of a better way to say it, but the low side in apathy, grief, and fear is I can't win. The high side is the higher side is you can't win. And then the high side with the courage, acceptance, and peace is everybody wins, and isn't that beautiful? So that used to seem like the destination to me. And even I'm just in the process of making an audio version of my book, and it's in there, darn it. Like there's still some Ascension programming in that book 4 years ago. So what can you do? I am going to make a commentary to go along with it, just to bring it more up to date rather than try to change that book. I'm going to write a new book. And so, yeah, it became more and more aware to me. Even I had intellectually picked up the idea of the high sides of the program not being true freedom. But it wasn't until the last few years when it utterly came home, especially because of the pandemic that made me run in mostly courage, right? It wasn't acceptable to be in apathy, wasn't acceptable to be in grief or fear or even lust or anger or pride. All of those were so costly to me, I couldn't afford them anymore. So I bumped up into courage. That seems fantastic. And you can ride a long time, but as you can see, I had a crash. And that's the nature of the high side, the ascension side of the programs. They cost so much energy. I even think they cost more energy to run the higher sides than the very lowest side, where you're just stuck on the couch not caring about anything.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, I've utilized them, and they are just lifesavers, especially when you start recognizing them. I remember at first you'd be like, which is Beth? He's like, no, just follow your gut, pick one. Eventually you'll figure out, but right now just go with this want and understand it and how you have to release it. And it made my life much, much better. And again, these days it's more automatic. Before I'd have to sit for an hour. Now it's like, I get it. Nice try, Miguel, or nice try programming. And Graham, since you may not be familiar, do you have a question, or what do you think of this? It's always good to ask somebody who might, from the outside, if you would.
Oh, no, I'm very impressed with it. I was going to say, it sounds like Beth is basically mining the same territory Jung is with integration, where you have the, you're looking for that Hegelian synthesis of the programs. The I hate myself, I love myself. Well, the synthesis is I love myself for some things. There are some things I can hate myself for. That's just how the life works. Accept it, integrate it, and move on. And that reflects back to what she was talking about with the controlled op, because they tend to exploit the two sides. It's like one of them will be a good cop and one of them will be a bad cop. I find that the controlled op often moves in, two-man teams that way.
That's really fun. I love that. So I will say a little bit about it. It's the one of the places that Carl Jung and I would diverge and maybe argue if he was here in person. So I don't see it as an integration. And the reason is that once you let a program go, and it's like Miguel was saying, it is an organization of a signature vibration of energy with you could even call it architecture. It's so recognizable, and you become a ninja over time at being able to see it for what it is. And even though there are many, many expressions, even of one signature vibration, you get to that point where you can so precisely identify it. Once it's identified, once it's felt, because that's a major gatekeeper. If you're not willing to experience it for what it is, allow it all the way to your awareness, not be off in, kind of a denial or trying to be separate from it at a distance. Then you're faced with a new choice. And the choice is, do I want to keep on taking instructions from this AI that I'm running, I'm not even a victim to anything else other than my own energy running that AI, or would I rather be free? And so then when you make that choice and it turns out this operating system is fully prepared to listen to us, again, because we are creating it. So the creator always controls. What's controlled can never control the creator. And so once you decide, yes, I won't be needing your service anymore. Thanks for telling me that I'm going to die. I think I'm fine. I'll look around and actually everything's fine. I'll take care of you. How's that? And then the energy literally goes from being a concentration of held energy to completely dissipated so you can't look back. There's nothing to integrate. There's nothing to synthesize. There's no compromise that, this is just how life is. You actually break the sound barrier. You go from being in a vibration and a frequency, and this comes back to the ascension, to being off the map, right? So freedom, for lack of a better word, some people would say God, and some people will say truth. And we just have pointer words. We don't have words for that which has no vibration. But all of the what might have been integration and synthesis, the purpose of all of that, what I've described, is to get off the map, to really experience freedom. That's, to me, like the ultimate, that we're here. That's no experience at all. We just can't really say that.
Makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. Yeah. And but the question on the ascension, and we talked about this yesterday on your podcast, was some have called it spiritual bypassing. And Indian gurus are always, a lot of them are like, very careful. Don't think you need to be the man on the mountain and not face your trauma or pay your taxes or heal things with your sister or whatever. You know, the work, the spiritual work, is here on earth. That's, we have a purpose. We need to work things out on earth instead of escaping. And I remember, Beth, reading Krishnamurti's book, Freedom from the Known, great book. And he criticized meditation. He said, because in the East, it makes people as limber as asparagus. In other words, they were being so high that they were easy controlled by the government. And it makes sense, right? We want our cattle to not have any anxiety, to be at peace, to be at one with each other, because they're easier to slaughter. And you could say the same thing from conservative religions, right? If you have every pastor at church on Sunday say, well, give it to Caesar this, but give to Jesus this, and you know, our government is a representative of God, and trust God and have faith, you could also become very passive and just let the machine just walk all over you. So do you see that as and yeah, we lose our elan vital, our vitality, we need good, strong egos, right?
Yes, you said a mouthful there. I love that. Peaceful people are easy to slaughter. They really are. And this is one of my missions, and what inspired me to create the work around the busting of ascension myths, because there's the scale of emotion, and it has 9 discrete steps. I've kind of talked about them a little bit already, but in order, at the very bottom, the lowest possible human vibration is apathy. That can seem like no vibration either, like a numbness. You're checked out. You just don't care. And then as you go up the scale and you start to care, you go into the grief element, which no one wants to feel, so they stay in apathy. And up the scale is fear. Again, nobody likes fear, so they tend to bump up to lust. Lust is so much better than fear, so or it seems to be. And from there, you go up to anger. The energy becomes much less fixed. Anger is more fiery, easier to take action. People love their anger, especially. It's better than fear and lust. And then you go up to pride, which is a really big trap, because nobody sees their own pride for the most part until you make a serious concerted study of seeing and taking out your pride. And then courage, acceptance, and peace. So people are thinking, because this is, in my experience, a hardwired installation inside of us. And it's not a ladder up to heaven. It is a spiral that has no end. And the spiral goes in 2 directions, as above, so below.
Mm-hmm.
So if you get on the track of, the AI is reading me.
I've never seen that before.
I know. I only see that on Zoom. There must be a setting here now.
It must be new. It's the first time I've seen it on StreamYard. Oh, well.
Yeah, I know. First ever. Maybe it's a computer. I don't know. And so then people end up on this chasing for more or less courage, acceptance, and peace. And yeah, Gnostic flipping of tables. Yeah, go Jesus. Exactly. And then so it becomes the endless chase for peace. And that's exactly what the meditation does. It gets you into a nice, like, la, kind of everything's okay. Oh, watch the thoughts come and watch the thoughts go. It has nothing to do with me and all of that. And there's a place for it. If you're completely off the rails and you're jacked up and your nervous system won't go into parasympathetic mode to heal, then yes, those things have their place. But they
do it all the time. I love it. But yeah,
right, exactly.
know the game.
Yeah, good. It is a healthy part of life, especially for your nervous system. But if you're addicted to peace and you think peace is the destination, then all you're going to end up with is apathy. Because as you go through the spiral of the scale, when you hit peace, your next destination up is apathy. So the scale is a kind of closed system, and it either goes up or it goes down, and that's all. So there's this order already installed, and it's very beautiful. I found myself last night in a good, and this can be very common for me as I hit the end of the day and all the work is done and I don't want to do any more work and I just start to kind of melt and become a piece of jello. And then it's kind of peaceful. And then I go into apathy. And there I am like, do I have to go to bed? I don't even care enough to go to bed. And then I'm going like, but I wonder what I would say to one of my clients right now. And actually did invent a tool for this exact. I mean, and I want to take that word invent back. I've inherited and reworked stuff that I was trained with. And so I started to do an exercise called spiraling and getting myself up the scale. And it's just such a fascinating, beautiful place to see, because you see you are the controller of all of it. All I have to do is suggest to myself to go from apathy to grief, and there's the grief. And then I suggest to go to fear, and oh, there's the fear. Wow, I wasn't feeling fear at all. And so on and so on and so on. And then by the time I'm actually getting myself into bed, I hit peace. And it's like, okay, perfect, peace. But I know now that the purpose of peace or any of those higher emotions is so you can do what you said, look and if it's your relationship with your sister, or it's this thing that you're trying to get past, or it's the beast inside of you that is telling you that everything's wrong, you're wrong. My version of a program last night is that there's something wrong with me, and I've heard this from people a number of times also. It's a composite, comes down to that not good enough. So I was really able to see from that place of peace, I could see that program. And then I was tasked like, okay, Beth, now what? Are you going to just go into spiritual bypass and denial and try to sleep it off? It's like, no, I laid there for 40 minutes and I released on that program layer upon layer upon layer upon layer, and was in a genuinely restful and healed place in order to sleep after. So it's very different, and it is that exact cure for the bypass that you're talking about.
Very much so. And you would say, you talk about the AI, the programming, and then this is the the usual suspects: our trauma, ancestor karma, maybe past lives, societal programming. Is that what the programming is, you would say?
Actually, those are all signs and symptoms of the programs.
Oh, okay.
They're not the actual architecture, the organization and signature vibration of how the energy is in your system, but they're signs of it. Yeah, that's one of my missions in the truth world, because people say like, oh, you listen to the government or you love the government. That's programming. And it's true, but it's just the outside edge of it. And if you try to work at that outside edge level, you get very, very limited results. Then you're pushing around furniture on the Titanic, you're wrestling with matter. And if you take on the wrestling match more inside yourself, where matter is in the blueprint and potential phase, because that's what programs are. They're like to me, like archetypes. They are a blueprint and a potential that if you fill it with your life energy, which is really you and God filling and imbuing those programs with life, they have no life of their own whatsoever. Yeah. Yeah. So then it's getting into that deeper layer and having having the bravery. It's no little thing. Right. Good on you. You had a lot of work under your belt, Miguel, when you began to use this. Were no stranger to looking at your own life and to feeling and to being honest with yourself. And it does require that. This could technically work for anyone, but without some of that foundation, then it can be near impossible. Much harder for men. And if I get back to the king hero side of things, how the expectation for men culturally, and I think by design as well, being full of testosterone and muscle and power, and women being much more soft, tasked with looking after children, the much more accessibility to emotions a woman has, and then the cultural acceptability of feeling and showing those emotions, which is not the destination either, by the way. So that's another trap of its own. So men, we're all born. I remember my dad telling me a story how he was born little, and that was a problem for his dad. They had been victims in the Bolshevik Revolution, literally massacred, half their family dead or carried away, never to be seen again. They fled to Canada, and began their life in a state of trauma, like you were saying, PTSD, terror every day. And so my dad, being a small, helpless first child, was wrong. So something's wrong with you was the program that got installed. The "you can't," and then the internalized "I can't." And a baby can't anything, not a single thing. They can cry and suck. That's it. They're done. And so it's very sad that programming gets placed in that immature, natural place to be. A sprout is a sprout. We don't sit and criticize the sprout for being a sprout. It's just where it's at. And then so we spend the whole life desperately trying to go from "I can't" to "I can." And you do a lot of work and you train yourself and you go the distance and you do the marathon, and all of a sudden I can walk, I can this, I can that. And it's good. That needs to happen. It is a normal part of especially physical development and skill development. But we get trapped in the programming of it. We get addicted to the feeling of "I can." For example, so many, especially women, have come to me over the years with a problem that they can't, say, be valued for their life's work or their purpose. And they have a list as long as their arm of the trainings that they have done. So they're skilled. They've got all of these now, maybe, and some talents and all of the skills. And then they come to me, but all the programming is telling them that they can't, and that they're not worthy, and that nobody loves them, and they're not in control of their lives. And then sometimes they do the work, and the conclusion can be that, oh, I need to go and do more training like this, instead of actually get out in the world and use it. Well, men can be quite the opposite, where they can take a little bit of knowledge and run with it. That's been where I'm more masculine, actually. I've done that all my life. And then you just get out with it instead of going, oh, is anybody going to love me? You're more programmed to take the risk of stepping into the "I can" even before you feel like you can. And that's a gift. You're going to do some great things in the world that way. But if you stay trapped in the programming of that, then it is a constant drain of life force and energy, because again, programs are so expensive energetically. That's why they're so healing to let go, because you get back so much of your energy.
Yeah, very good point. And with that energy, that's when you can do the real work and feel freer and just expand your life. Yeah, everyone, for those of you joining us late, Beth Martens is here giving us an excellent talk on the Myth of Ascension. If you have a question for her, please super chat them so we can separate them from the group and Graham can get into them. And yeah, why don't we talk about archetypes? Because you were talking about the spiraling. And I know, obviously, you differ from Jung. And I was thinking there's a quote that Jung once said, thank God I'm Jung and not a Jungian. Because he always said that he never thought that his work was the end all or be all. He always hoped that others would take his ideas and expand and tweak them. even his ideas of archetypes, he changed his mind like 2 or 3 times during his life, because he was always, things change. We're discovering new things. So tell us about how archetypes work in your system.
Yeah, the main difference with Carl Jung is that he did consider them to be entities. And I agree that they act like entities. They do act like entities. They've got a discrete kind of a form to them. I have contact with entities, for lack of a better way to say that, and it's markedly different from what I see in the archetypes. Again, calling them more of a blueprint or a lens that the life energy shines through and creates very specific, mappable, trackable patterns of thinking, of behaving, and of manifesting in the world. So they are a beautiful, reliable map of consciousness. And it's a way to know yourself and to know others and learn how to interact with yourself and others, knowing that you have that energy. So the big example I think I've probably talked about before, but maybe not for a long time, is I discovered that when I was sick and dying and I couldn't figure out what was taking the life out of me, while I was doing everything possible, everything good, all the best, everything I could possibly imagine, still dying. And I was able to see that one archetype was so dramatically out of alignment. For me at that time, it was two really, but I focused a lot on the one rebel.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I tried not to be a rebel because being a rebel got me in so much trouble when I was young. I was an outcast. I was, kicked out of my family at times. I was put in institutions. I spent a night in jail. I, got wrapped up with all the wrong people, one in particular. And then I made a new choice later in life. Oh, I just want to be a normal person and have everybody like me, and then I'll be acceptable in society, and I'll make money, and I'll be able to go to India every year, which is my hidden secret agenda. And and all it got me was nearly dead. So it's like, okay, this isn't working. And when I was able to see how badly suppressed that rebel archetype was, and then I was able to make a new choice. And the choice was that I want freedom more than I want to be acceptable, than I want to even survive. It was a time of facing death itself, the program of death, which is definitely a program. And you can say that and know intellectually there's no death. I had that paradigm already. But when you face death, it's different. It's very, very different. It's not the high ideal. Oh, there's no death. We don't have to worry about death. And just like, you haven't met death if you have that experience. So that all catapulted me into reclaiming. This is where what you were saying, Graham, about the integration and the synthesis. It was calling back something I had installed in me, whether I'm the installer, God's the installer, who knows how we come with those things. But I was able to call back that part of my soul that really needed to stand up, that needed to say no, that needed to be the weirdo, risk everybody thinking that I'm not normal. And, a lot of nuances there. And when I was able to bring that part of myself back to my awareness, it really never went anywhere, right? It's just between you and your awareness. And I stopped pushing it away and slamming it down. Then all the energy I used to push and slam it down that was costing me my life, because that would have otherwise been healing energy, it returned to my system. And that's when I went from dying to living. So it was a huge demonstration to me about how the archetypes work. Another archetype that was really at play was the nurturer. This has been a big focus of mine on that. And I'll get to that spiral of the archetypes as well, for sure. But I just want to throw this in because I had such a poignant example of it day before yesterday. The nurturer is something that most everybody in my world suffers. They are helping spirits. When I asked at an Acapulco, put your hand up if you're a helping spirit, everybody put their hands up. And that's part of the hero's journey, that when you start to overcome your own obstacles and trials, you want to be of service. We talked about that yesterday in your interview with me, which I do highly recommend everybody check out. That once you gain some recovery for yourself, then you turn into a sponsor. Then you start helping other people and offering them what was given you when you were down. And so that nurture, it was a big part of why I was in that world with my family's business. But it is incredibly different. I literally was so blind to the nurturer. I had no idea that I had it. That's how immensely suppressed it was. So even though I was doing cartwheels and everything possible and working around the clock to save my family's business during a very big economic downturn in the 90s, I didn't see that side of myself. I didn't see how I was killing myself with that nurturer energy. My mom, I didn't even see my mom as a nurturer at all. She always expressed more like hate, not liking that she was responsible for all the children and looking after the home and all the nurturing kind of things. And it was a surprise to me to find that energy as well. And then I was on the call with a beautiful woman in Canada here, just getting to know her, seeing if there's maybe some work we're going to do together. And 5 minutes before our call, where she had some me time, so to speak, if you want to call it that, her brother came and dropped off the baby. And so she's there in the call, literally trying to work on this exact shadow of always being the one who everybody turns to when they fall down. And she's like doing this with the baby. And it was just like the most poignant illustration of how that happens, that we can end up taking care of everybody and not taking care of ourselves. And you end up, the shadow looks nothing like the nurturer. You end up literally, secretly, though, resenting and hating people that you help, because you come up short every day. This is something I'm going to be doing a training on. This particular nuance is what I call the nurturer's pendulum swing, where you help everybody like an athlete, heroically going the distance, doing everything. You crash, you burn, and you help nobody, and you hate everybody, and you tell them to get away forever. And then you recover from that and you forget, because you've got the blueprint of the nurturer, and you go back to helping everybody in that heroic way. And this cycle goes on and on and on and on. And it's a torture. It's a torturous life. So people think that, being a good nurturer means just say no. Well, that's nothing. There's no truth in that. If you are a nurturer, you are built for serving and helping others. You can't not do it. So whether you're helping everybody or helping nobody, both are a kind of torturous thing. So I'm on a mission to help the helpers. And so that's going to be coming up fairly soon with a free training on the outset. So if you check in at my website, you'll be seeing that fairly soon. And yes to the spiral and the ascension. So every archetype itself has the potential for ascension, to go from a shadow, more enemy version of the archetype, to a high, enlightened, awakened place where the gifts are all there for your using in a conscious way. It's fantastic, but it's still a map and it's still a vibration. So the spiral of the archetypes, as I've conceived it, as you've asked, as I write about it in my book, it starts with the child archetype, the beginning of everything, the shadows being confusion, the feeling like you're lost, like you have no purpose. You get lost, especially in two experiences of betrayal and abandonment, which are very close, if not identical, experiences when you study the signature of them. And it's the time when God is calling you, saying, you have a purpose. Are you coming on your hero's journey? And you either head for under the covers and go into denial and try to hide or wait out the conflict that might have sent you there. Pandemic, a lot of people just went and laid it under the bed or under their covers and watched Netflix. And some of us got out there and just started to do the thing, even when you don't know what the thing is. Because I didn't know what the thing was. I was just like listening moment to moment. And so going up the scale, once you resolve, you tell God you're coming, you go up the scale into that rebel archetype, you decide you're going to take on the fight and not hide from that out of fear of not surviving it. And you can get lost in that rebel without a cause that rails against the machine and fights everybody and is such in a habit of fighting that you don't even know a good thing when you see it. You fight against it, say no to everything. And once you find your purpose to fight, that moves you forward up on the journey, ascending to the warrior archetype, where you're much more, you're going to train, you're going to build your adeptness at handling conflict, inner and outer. You're going to decide to work with goals. So you're not just always troubleshooting your life and the problems that go wrong. You're going to put positive things out in front of you to reach for. And then you're going to slay the demons and the dragon's inner. Maybe it's like a woman being tasked to build something real and tangible and manifest, or a man more to like feel the feelings, can be definitely a warrior kind of a thing. And then that moves you forward into this nurture that I was talking to. And if you build the boundaries that are based in reality and deprogram to that degree of being able to walk in the world as a helping spirit without killing yourself, it moves you forward again into the lover and the hedonist archetype, which is much more about the soul, much more about receiving direct information and transmissions without needing anybody's permission. Am I okay? Am I okay? Kind of thing. And then if you risk that and you don't get lost in obsession and compulsion and the search for lies, thinking it's the search for truth, which it's not, and the emptiness, the bottom of which could be addiction and the absolute absence of purpose, and you find that new purpose and the pleasure of purpose and the love of purpose, that moves you forward to ascend into the king. And the king, you might think, is the top. That's like the king of the castle. You're at the top, but you're actually not at the top. You're still going to have demons to slay around power, being vulnerable to a little bit of power. We tend to, if we think we are the source of that power, then you are vulnerable to corruption in a big way, and you start to dominate. We have got a lot of examples in the world of that kind of domination. And so the king needs to call on the last archetype, the highest archetype on the spiral, being the alchemist, the one that is much more looking inward, seeing the fractures of consciousness. This is where Jung and I would more agree, how consciousness, just like the body, will put off things that need to be handled in good time when there's capacity and capability. The mind and the heart are going to triage the healing and give you many opportunities for wholeness. That's the superpower of the alchemist. And when you can handle either conflict and problems or building and manifesting here instead of always the muscle out there, you conserve energy, you conserve time. You know, someone doesn't even know that you have a problem with them. They don't even have to know. And it can be completely resolved. Or somebody you're having a problem with right in front of your face, that problem could be resolved in the same conversation. It is where deep healing takes place, can be physical, emotional, spiritual, ancestral, like you talked about on my podcast yesterday. And it seems like the pinnacle. Your life becomes a demonstration of sage wisdom. This is where you return with the elixir. You give back everything that you've learned on the journey. And your mission to, now this is my secret hidden agenda, returning humanity back to nature, right? Which is kind of the beginning. And it sets you on the beginning again. So reaching the pinnacle experience of the alchemist only means you're going to be starting over if you choose it. Now, all of that being the same with the spiral of emotion, all of that map, the purpose of those maps is freedom. So it's not in and of itself to be the highest excelling any archetype or all the archetypes, or to be, slaying on your hero's journey. That is I hesitate to use the word program. I don't like to use the word programming for that, but that's the installation. That's the hardwiring. Some people might say simulation. I'm actually closer than I ever have been to believing in a simulation theory. The only difference for me would be that it's us creating the simulation, not the archon enemy creating the simulation. So yeah, that's a really big mouthful there.
Well, thank you for that, for sharing these ideas. And again, I've practiced them. I've read your book, and they've worked out for me. I mean, I think the goal of mine, as you and I worked together, was going from the king to the alchemist and the trickster. And I'm glad, because in 2020, as I say, this is the age of Hermes. This is chaos as our civilization collapses and transfers into whatever we're going to be next. So it was the perfect thing to hold on to it. And I'm holding on to it until the next stage, because, it's the trickster that guides you to the other side. So according to the great myths. And yeah, Graham, do you have a question or remark on your end?
No, I'm very impressed. I was going to say, everything she's expressing, where I differ is probably a difference of perspective and terminology. It's sort of like I kind of see, a lot of the choice being the two sides of existence, being doing and being. And, too many people want to just be rather than do, and the two are there. And my take on archetypes is more mathematical. I see them more as attractors in phase space. And, that's just what works for me and my understanding. Other than that, very impressed. Thank you.
You're welcome. Can you repeat what you said? Tractors and what?
Attractors in phase space. It's a mathematical concept where it's similar to ascension. It's like gravity, where the Earth is an attractor, and that's what pulls everything towards it, and it's operating on a higher mathematical level.
That's so interesting. Yeah. So there's one of the dynamics, I'm not sure if this relates at all, but there's one of the dynamics inside ourselves. Say there's something that you want and you have a goal to get. And I totally agree about doing and being completely out of balance in the spiritual world. We think we can just like own ourselves and be, that's our big doing, and our service to humanity is like, no, you got to do shit. You actually have to do stuff to demonstrate the being. Because then there's nothing, right? And then part of that dynamic when you go to do something is you are both attracted to doing it, and the much more hidden lower side. Attraction would be the ascension side. The lower side would be aversion, right? So whatever the goal is that you want to put out in front of you, whether it's, for self-fulfillment or service or some combination is of course a beautiful thing, then those two forces are always going to be keeping you in a state of spinning. Attraction is this kind of action. Aversion is this kind of action, pushing away with my hands. If you're hearing this podcast, you probably won't get what I'm doing there, but the sense, and then so those two actions, those two energetic actions, cause you to spin and go in circles and usually do nothing, and take a lot of energy to do nothing. No, nonetheless, right? It's not just even being a couch potato. You're just like zzz. And so by systematically removing the attachments and the aversions, and this is beautiful. I'm glad you said that, Graham, because it is the punchline. You don't want to have that I can't, and the I can, as you know already, is an expensive program. What is the alternative to I can't and I can that isn't the attachment and the aversion? Any guesses, you guys? I think, Miguel, you might get it.
No, let me know.
My pick is I'll try.
I'll try. There you go.
Nice. Well, you're way up the scale. That's great, Graham. That's courageous to be there, but still on the scale. So from I can't to I can to I am.
Mm.
And once you remove all of the attachments and the aversions to something, and you're only doing it because you are, because you're alive, because this is the purpose and the blueprint.
Yeah,
And
bingo.
and this is freedom. Right? When you do something and there's no like, I have to get it, or the unconscious like, oh my God, if I get it, what's going to happen? And then you're free to do it. You're not out there trying to get approval. You're not trying to get control. You're not trying to survive. It takes all the heaviness out of it. And as someone said, yeah, like time is the most valuable thing. Again, things can happen stupid fast from that place. Some parallels with law of attraction, but it's not that just think and get rich kind of thing, because I am is a sacred space. It is a massive responsibility. You can't get it dishonestly. There's no way to come from that place without being totally honest with yourself and seeing your motivations. So does that have anything to do with what you were saying, Graham?
No, I think you did. I think you're describing it from just, like I said, a different perspective.
Yeah.
Different terminology. We're looking at the same thing. We're limited by the words we have to use.
Yeah, and I stopped making words my enemy. I will no longer be in word jail. And there's been a lot of word jail around. Oh my gosh. And people just jump down your throat because you use a certain word. And even I'm reading Walter Russell now, I was saying in the interview yesterday, and there's some very distinct ascension language in there. And I'm like, okay, hang on, Beth, like just stick with it, see, rather than demonizing and putting the book away, just keep with it and see, is it truly, because he's using that ascension language, is it really what he's talking about or not? I think it is actually. So, but I'll still stick with it. And yeah, we can say the same thing with different words, and that's beautiful because we're coming to the very same truth from a different place, but look at it, it's the same truth.
Exactly. Exactly. And what you said reminded me of, again, going back to Jung, and we talked about it yesterday, where he said, free will is doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. And it sounds paradoxical, but it is. I mean, freedom happens when you find your purpose, when you're in the zone. If you're following your ego, your programming, it's not free will. You're trapped. You are a slave to the programming, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So I really play with that one, and I can hear arguments on both sides about free will, and I will shimmer myself where I've talked like, oh, I'm just a slave to God. Okay, God, what should I do today? I'll get up, but what I'll find inside myself with that is that I will be running the program that says I have no control, and
Mm-hmm.
therefore I need to want to be controlled. So here in the freedom or truth movement, we might not suffer so much of wanting the government to control us or the police or the doctors, but we want God to control us and be the one that's calling the shots and taking the responsibility. Not my will, thy will. Even this is a little bit under the microscope for me. It's so useful. It is a very powerful thing to relinquish your very unconscious sense that I'm God. I'm the one creating everything. It's just me against the world, and that's not useful either. But I'm much more in a place of like, are we in this together, God? Are we creating this day together? Because if I don't do, like Graham was saying, if I don't do, nothing happens. God's not going to just show up and do that work. So me sitting around waiting for God's will or the God's approval and God's permission, like I think it's more, we have God's will. That's what I think free will is, the ability to choose. And so it is an enormous responsibility.
Yeah, like what you said, co-creating. You're working together. Again, this sense of balance.
Yeah, it's such a comfort because if the more you take on rising, ascending, getting into higher realms, doing more service, accomplishing more, creating more, the more that, first of all, another one of the punchlines, the greater the depth of the lower side that you're going to be creating, and then the bigger the responsibility. Darn it, I lost the thread, Miguel. What did you last say?
Oh, we were talking about co-creating with God in choice, and just getting through the day is, again, am I doing God's will? Am I on the right path? Et cetera, et cetera.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's the comfort of it when you're way out of your comfort zone every day, all day. And that's kind of how I live my life, always doing something scary every stupid day. That's hard. Just pick one day, and then the one day when I'm not doing something scary, I'm like, oh, okay, I'm not a normal day. But yeah, it is an enormous comfort just to have always that sense, like, and I just asked the question, God, are we in this together? And it's like, oh yeah, we are.
And let me ask you this. Since 2020, were you already into anarchism when we started talking, or is it something that you sort of pivoted towards?
That came up in my childhood, so to speak. So yeah, one of my first boyfriends was an anarchist and had the mohawk and the underground club where all of the punk rockers met and stuff like that. So yeah, we were into anarchy at that time, and I grew with that, and I didn't really consider myself an anarchist. I still don't, but the label is mildly problematic with the anarchy, because when you look at it from the archetypal side, the public, which represents ruling and order and structure, and the private, which is the organic, living, breathing men and women, the two are not even two.
Mm-hmm.
There's not one without the other. And I saw how in the last couple of years, how it is in fact the masculine, feminine archetype, the public and the private.
Mm-hmm.
It's also the left brain and the right brain. And you can't get away from it. So it's a big psyop that we've been instructed to kill the public, to kill the rulers, or to be unrulable, or to be uncontrollable, which I still hold as an ideal, because I'm a rebel. That's my
Yeah.
my shtick. But in reality, and when you look at it, all of the rulers are there to serve the people, to protect the private. That is the purpose. It's true nature. And that never goes away. It's just wildly out of balance and denatured. So we're seeing it as the enemy by design. Is the more we rail against the machine, the stronger it gets. It's just like your programs inside. If you wrestle and you fight with them and you hate them, then they get bigger and bigger and more powerful. So yeah, the anarchy thing, I'm not particularly down with, but there's a lot of things about self-responsibility,
Right.
about creating your own life, creating your own wealth. This is the part of the anarchy community that I'm part of. They're anarcho-capitalists, they're entrepreneurs, they're creators, there's so much beautiful creation energy in those communities. They're just going strong, lots of king heroes. So I feel super happy in that environment, even though there's a lot of ascension going on and they need my help. They don't know it. They know it a little bit. Then yeah, so that's my take on anarchy.
No, that's a good take, as I always say. Or anarchy is not a utopian thing. It's not that it will have its problems if it's ever sort of mainstream. I mean, but at this point in time, it's a good bulwark against the totalitarian force that's coming towards it. And obviously, probably the best one, because again, liberalism, conservatism, all these things are just collapsing as we speak, just failing. It's just outdated. So obviously, same with socialism. I mean, again, these things are easily weaponized now against us, even capitalism. It's It's to me it's the best one, and anarchism just comes from the Greek for without archon. So I'm happy to see that. And
Very
here's a
cool.
quote speaking about the ancient Gnostics. I wanted to mention yesterday. I think they would easily be considered one of anarchists. They were certainly accused of it. And this quote I always thought was very good. And this is from an old church father. He said, "The Gnostics so addicted to truth as to not need to use an oath." And I've been fascinated with it because I can see it. You can see it both ways. You can see it as good as not, and you can see it as in ancient times that they were not going to pledge to any church or government. Yes, that sounds like that Rush song, Tom Sawyer. My mind's not for rent to any god or government. You can see that, but at the same time, then you worry about, well, what is this truth that they're so addicted to? Is it a continuous discovery? I'd like to see it. It's a continuous discovery what's out there. So I thought I would share with that. And if you have any thoughts, Beth.
Yeah, that's very deep. Can you put it up again for me?
Sure.
Yeah.
And there was a group that always called themselves of ancient Gnostics, the generation without a king. And that was really controversial 2000. I mean, nobody would admit that, everybody had a king or a Caesar or a priest, let's say.
Yeah, because you've got, and I might just be seeing through my lens, but you've got the public and the private right in there. That the truth being the actual physical manifestation of real life, bodies, flesh, what we build, the layers of what we build on the outside ends up being more of the public structure that contains the life, right? If you've got a family and you don't have a house, you don't really have a family. Unless you live in the tropics under the bananas and the coconuts, and you can, but
Yeah,
still, that's not that good a life. I know that it's not that romantic, and so yeah, I'm actually liking that the addiction to the truth, that is the lover archetype right there in a
uh,
nutshell. The addiction to the truth is often addiction to, like, it becomes an obsessive and a compulsive and a
yeah.
very
You're not
energetically
going to
passive.
compromise. You're just going to keep going, like you said, a rebel or a mad person or something like that.
A blind person.
Yeah.
Exactly. When like, when you think of a lover being more in a romantic, and they're that's one of those symptoms, is you're literally blinded, drunk
Mhm.
on love. I think everybody's been in that experience where, yeah, they didn't see what they didn't see. Were you going to say something?
Oh yeah, no, yeah, agreed. The
Yeah.
blind.
Yeah. And truth and beauty and love to the lover are identical. There's no difference between them. So that addiction to the truth is a huge cost of energy. It's definitely going to stop you on your hero's journey. And the sobriety can be, now I'm going to just flip into the masculine feminine archetype. The sobriety can be that allow the man to be. I personally come from a lot of years of rejecting men, rejecting the public, outright rejecting any masculine energy, but then inside myself displaying intense masculine energy and being that shadow masculine, but I
Mm.
couldn't see it. So these two elements, it's I've rejected balance a lot, but I think it's still balance. And if I come back, I'm just being a rebel trying to say balance is BS. But those two, they work together. There is a place where they work together so perfectly. And one of the cures to ascension is an exercise I call, I'm not sure if we did this at all when we worked together, Miguel, but it's called marrying the opposites. And that might
Mm.
not be new to you. It is from alchemy, where you
Yeah.
have two opposing experiences. If I go back to the King Hero version, that I can't and I can. And we almost always are only going to have one or the other. Same with the masculine feminine. One, you're either being feminine or you're being masculine. And there is an exercise where you can discharge the emotional drunkenness from
Mm.
both experiences and get to a place where you have the ability to hold both signature vibrations, the architecture of it, in your awareness at the same time. Inside that is often a great deal of tension because of the polarities, magnetism, physics, who knows what exactly is going on here, the toroidal field of it. And it completely dissolves the opposites. I talked about this with controlled op, because that's why it's a subject, because we have opposition, the good guys and the bad guys, or any version of that. And then you can dissolve that feeling, that experience of opposition inside yourself, again, to reclaim life energy, so it could be used to create and heal and serve life.
Well said indeed. Yes, yes. We talked about this yesterday. Yeah. Divide and conquer is what the archons use against us, and we can use against ourselves as we go to lower vibrations.
And higher vibrations.
Yes,
Exactly.
of course.
Yeah. And the goal to go to or to have an intimate relationship with no vibration.
Exactly. And what about you, Graham? I've known you for many years, and you've always been a staunch independent. You're very surgical about any issue, political movement, shift in tectonics or anything. Are you still there, and has it worked out for you?
Well, I'm still there. I can't vouch that it's worked out for me. The proof is in
It
the
hasn't worked out for the
pudding.
common man. Yeah, it has not worked out for
But
middle class.
I attribute that to when I was in college. I read Robert Nozick's Anarchy, State, and Utopia, and he just broke basically political science down to like a mathematical thing for somebody like me to understand well. And I resulted in basically a minarchist. He proved how some sort of protective agency akin to the government pretty much is going to evolve from a state of nature. But if you go much beyond protecting citizens' rights, for citizens' rights from violation and being the final arbiter of disputes between citizens, now you start to get into oppression. So it's like, that resolve for me, it's like you need a minimum level of government, and then, you don't want to go too much above it. So that's kind of where I've settled on, since I was in college.
But what about, the minarchist sounds very attractive. I think it's closer to what the founding fathers wanted. But there's that quote by Frank Herbert that says, power doesn't corrupt, it attracts the corruptible. So even if you have a nice small government, aren't the psychopaths, the narcissists, all those cats will like moth to flames. Isn't that what we get?
Oh, absolutely. I was going to say, I think the founders tried to incorporate some of that with the way they had it with the three-part dividing government, where they basically figured that you got two narcissists holding the other one in check. Tag.
Honor amongst thieves, right? Yeah. I mean, that's as James True said on the show, blackmail is how the elites and the establishment keeps each other honest. And sometimes you wish they wouldn't blackmail each other because it would just destroy each other. But here we are.
Funny. Yeah, it reminded me also just how very desirable and much more positive it is to handle your own problems in the private.
I like that.
Yeah, because once it's in the public hands, then it's a wild card. It can go any direction. Even if you are a victim in the situation, it can be turned against you. I have a good friend who was very badly robbed. He ended up escaping to Mexico in the pandemic because they figured they were coming for him. We all had our moments where like, are they just going to show up at the door with the needles or whatever? And so he fled and then was robbed in the meantime to the tune of $20,000 worth of by the person who was supposedly looking after, and had to slaughter all the animals. It was just like a terrible situation. And so he went to the police because he had to report some of those items that were registered in his name. And, otherwise that he could have been in a great deal of trouble had they been used for nefarious purposes. And this guy that did the theft still to this day walks completely free, right? Being so the public is not handling the situation. That's due to the corruption, the protection of the perpetrator. Unfortunately, even though we love our victims, it's a real screws with your mind on that. So, and so if you can handle your matters in the private, then you're always going to be better off. And I also made a metaphor or analogy that I think is also very poignant with your health, that when you get small messages from programs running, small symptoms, small things that go off in your life, maybe small pain, a headache here, or you're tired or something like that. If you wait for it to become manifest in your body, like I did, it became a stage 4 lymphoma, very advanced cancer, then it's like going to court. But you don't have to bring all your matters to court, because it can go either way. There was no guarantee of surviving, no guarantee that I could heal. I was very far gone. Most people don't even find the wherewithal to do inner work from that very compromised, energy depleted place. So as much as you can live in the private and handle your matters privately through relationships, through resolving conversations, and especially families, never let your family go to court about anything.
Yeah.
This is I have seen that in the law world. Did a lot of championing for people that were getting crushed legally, and I just see it's like my goal is to stay out of that public, but it's there if I need it, and if it pulls me in, I'm not a total dummy about it. Close.
Great advice. Yeah. Great advice indeed. All right. Well, we are towards the end. For everybody, please support A Young Bite. Please like, subscribe, share any way you can support so we can keep the lights of the Pleroma on. Next week, actually next Thursday, our guest will be Graham. I guess Graham and I will have to decide. We'll have to split duties. I'll take care of the crowd. He'll do the presentation, but he's going to tell us, he's going to give us a very enlightening and engaging presentation on the origins of Judaism. So it's going to be as mind-blowing as when he's talked about in our groups about the origins of Christianity. Again, whatever you think you knew, forget about it. You're getting some really good data. And other good shows too coming up. But Beth, what do you want? Of course, I already have your website on the show notes. I'll have your website on the show notes when it comes out in audio and the other channels. But where do you want to send people, or just BethMartens.com?
Yes, BethMartens.com. One of the things you can do on my homepage is an archetype quiz. And if you've already done that quiz, because I know that I've connected with some of your people that way, then just send me a contact message there at my website and let me know you want the direct link, because you can't sign up for it more than one time. But you can do the archetype quiz of the hero's journey more than one time to find out where on the path of purpose you are, where you're finding the most shadows and gifts that come as a pair there. And you instantly get some download. I'm always hearing from somebody that says, oh yeah, I saw that and I made some progress immediately. I changed something because it was what I didn't see about myself. And so that's a great way to do it. If my book is there, if you're interested to read through the archetypes of the hero's journey so that you can, that's really nice. Scott, I love Scott. He's awesome.
Yeah, thank you very much for the support.
Very good. And so the book is a journey through it. I'm doing the audiobook now, so stay tuned. Once we get in contact, then I'll be letting you know about that. I just got some good feedback on it. Luckily, I was thinking about you, Miguel, that maybe I was going to get you to narrate it, but I selfishly wanted it to be my own voice.
Yeah, because I would say yes, even when I have people come about these days, will you do my audiobook? If you already are a podcaster, or you're on YouTube, or you do coaching, people are used to your voice. Sorry, Beth, you're gonna and audiobooks it's speaking of draining and a lot of work. It's very rewarding, but yeah, they want to hear your voice. They want to hear your voice.
Yeah, yeah. I had a lot of respect for you doing that professionally and full time and being hired for that because, yeah, that is a lot of work every time sitting down and,
And
one
your book's
chapter.
not short. Your book's not short. It's not like a 200, a simple.
Exactly. Yeah, it was almost 9 hours of audio is what
Yeah.
it's turned into. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I'm
Yeah.
not surprised. I am not surprised. So.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I was surprised, but yeah, so that's really good. And I've got that training in the nurturer archetype. So if you heard yourself in that pendulum swing of helping everyone and helping no one and being tired of the crash in between, then that will be a good one to look out for at my website. And I'll be emailing about it. Thanks, Mary Jane. And the King Hero's Journey podcast, if you're not familiar, I do have a great deal of archives. Start at my website because the old YouTube channel was canned, or at my Rockfin, and Rumble is brand new, but Rockfin is probably the best archive of everything, and the blog at my website. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I do have some interviews. Mike Winter is going to be on from Alpha Vedic. And do you know
Cool.
Lubomir Asrov, the guy who created the film Kingdom?
No.
It's a brand new film. I'll send you if you like. He created one. He's been away pre-pandemic and then created a film for the pandemic. It was, I think it's called The Forest, and it's an animation that's really beautifully depicting all the suffering and the the face and how the children are. Whoa, just hit myself with my phone. That's a good sign there. And yeah, so very powerful film and a lot more hopeful this time, which I was like, yay, that's so good. And I managed to get in touch with the filmmaker, who is very, very brilliant, and you can feel his inner work and humility, and like life has somehow put him in that very open kind of space. So I'm super excited the Monday after to be interviewing him as well.
Cool. Well, check it out. Should be a good one. Well,
Yeah.
awesome. Well, Graham, thanks for keeping us company and being here.
Oh, always my pleasure. I was going to say my presentation is going to be, I'll be tracing Judaism from Plato to Herod, and it was an absolute pleasure to sit here and get some insights from Beth. Thanks.
Yes, Beth. As always, it's great to have you on, and hopefully we won't wait 3 years for our next chat on either podcast, unless World War III. I mean, World War III already started, but World War III really ramps up. Then I guess we really should be even doing more podcasts.
That's my answer to everything, Miguel. Exactly.
Yeah,
Just create something.
let it out. Yes,
Create
yes.
something. Exactly. Hello to Slick Dissident in the chat, by the way. He says, I'm his Kung Fu instructor of your Shambhala. We should totally connect. It's been a long time coming.
Awesome. Well, also, Beth, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you very much, Stony Curtis, for your support. And I always dig your comments on YouTube. Stony Curtis has some of the best comments on YouTube that you'll see. It just always has some good insights. So, but we are at the end, and I hope everybody enjoyed it. I hope you have a good weekend. And again, next week I've got a surprise show coming on the Archons, and we've got Graham, and we will hopefully see you live or on the replay. And as I always say, write your own gospel, live your own myth. Take care, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks so much.